Hi there. I've been seeing a lot of questions lately in some of my local gardening groups about setting up irrigation beds. So I thought I would share kind of my process and just like what some of the materials are to kind of hopefully demystify a little bit of it. So you can see I've got my beds here. I've got water that flows through this top tubing down through this system, which has an inline valve, so I can turn off and turn on water to each individual bed. Most of the stuff is made out of this polyethylene tubing. It's 1/2 inch. Most of the stuff you can get at any Home Depot, Lowe's, or similar store. Then I've got, so there's some elbow or L-shaped fittings. Some T-shaped fittings here, the inline valve that I mentioned. We use some hose clamps to hold it in place. There's drip buttons, and then I have some skinnier polyethylene tubing. I think this is 1/4 inch that I got to go over it. I had to use a heat gun. It was a really tight fit. I used yard staples. This tubing is not very flexible. So it helped me to keep it in place when I was making it, but also it does relax a little bit when it's in the sun, so you don't really need yard staples. And then where it connects to the hose, there's a hose fitting as well. Sorry, the wind's blowing my stuff all over. So the first thing I did when kind of thinking about what I wanted was I actually set up a plan. I drew out my garden beds and decided, where do I need it to curve? Where do I need it to connect? Where do I need my valves? And then how many of them I need. As well as I measured how long is the bed, just so I can make the process faster. So I got 5 beds, 72 inches wide. So I need five pieces there. Basic math, but for the most part I just drew it out and thought about where the water was going to flow. Some things like right here is actually where the water goes from my lower beds over here up to the garden beds. It goes behind my compost and up. Usually you don't really want an elevation difference between your water system because you'll get more pressure to the lower part. But I've got right here, I've got a valve over there, and so it shuts off the water to these beds or lowers the pressure, which brings more water back this way. So having the inline valves actually made it really fixed a lot of problems that I could have had. And then again, just demystifying some of the materials. So most of it was this black polyethylene tubing. I just measured out how much I wanted and cut it. It's kind of tough, so my pruning shears worked pretty well. There's this skinnier polyethylene tubing, the stuff I used over the drip buttons. For the T-shape and elbow fittings that I talked about. So the ones I preferred were what's called the compression fitting. So if you see, it's just got a little ring on the inside here that digs into the polyethylene tubing, and you literally just shove it in. You kind of have to use a little bit of force, but that ring makes it hard for it to back out. The other type of fittings, and this is just 1/2 inch tubing. I just looked for 1/2 inch compression fitting for irrigation, T-shaped, elbow-shaped, whatever. The other type that's not compression is the barbed fitting. These were not my preferred ones because it's just a looser fit. And so what happened was the water pressure would get going and it actually forced this out and broke my system. So the way that we troubleshooted that was we wrapped this barbed end with this stretch and seal tape. Then we put it in, and then we used a hose clamp to secure the polyethylene tubing over the barbs. As far as like putting in your drip buttons, most of the manufacturers of this tubing will say like, hey, we recommend you put a button every 12 to 18 inches. The way you do that, oh, hopefully the wind didn't blow away my awl. Okay, it did. Well, the awl is the thing that you use to punch a hole in this polyethylene tubing. So I actually punched one here. Sometimes, like if you buy a drip kit online, usually it'll come with it. But you can also find that in the plumbing section next to like all the drip buttons and everything. And then this drip button just gets jammed into that hole. So you can eyeball it, like over here I just did a drip button wherever I had a plant. Or like these beds I wanted more even watering, so I kind of just measured it out and did the same for each one, and that made the whole process go a little faster. And then so the biggest thing for me is I've set up probably 3 different systems, different irrigation systems. This, I would say, is my best one. I really like the inline valves. I like that I can control where the water goes to and how much it gets. So like I can turn off certain beds while the other beds are running. I can adjust the pressure to them. That's been really helpful. But other than having made some in the past, I don't have any experience with this. I know it can look a little intimidating. My biggest advice is, if you have 1/2-inch tubing, then you got to stick with 1/2-inch fittings. I like the compression fittings better. They're a little bit of a pain to stuff on, but this really needed some finagling and extra materials. Save your receipts, because I got a different brand of compression fitting that was an inline valve, and the hole here was just tiny and impossible to fit this tubing in. So if you do have to do any troubleshooting, just save your receipts. Most places are good about returning the materials, and make sure that you're getting irrigation specific tubing. I think sometimes in the plumbing area there is stuff that looks similar. I really like the polyethylene stuff. But yeah, I promise if I can do it, literally no other experience other than having tried it before and trial and error. I promise you can do it. Just draw it out first and you'll be good to go. Thanks for watching. Bye.